So, we as a society aren't doing too hot right now. Our mental health has been in a pretty serious decline since like the 1960s or so, and people feel as if the reality is bleak and hopeless, which is like not cool. And the poor mental health of our nation is of course being exacerbated by the government mandated coping. And when the people cannot cope with the coping, they turn to coping, to cope with the coping, which journalists seem to love to promote. Cue Vice News and their obsession with drug abuse. Now, Vice was founded by a guy named Gavin McInnes, who I actually thought was pretty cool until he called me gay at CPAC, which is beside the point. He's no longer associated with Vice, but Vice basically exists now to promote drug abuse as the answer to everyone's problems, with great pieces of literature like Tripping on Mushrooms with My Mom, how mixing mushrooms and MDMA affects your body and brain. Are they going to tell you the negative effects of this drug use? Of course. But only in the back end of the article after they tell you how to take these drugs in tandem and how much fun you're going to have. How much cocaine do you have to do before your nose falls apart? Where they give you a couple great techniques on how to do cocaine while protecting your cartilage. Very important. The ins and outs of binge drinking and lockdown, where they show you how directionless women are using alcoholism to get social media validation. And my personal favorite, people are using ketamine at home to escape their pandemic reality, with a subtitle that reads, "Some people get into witchcraft, some bake bread. I'm doing ketamine," said one woman who first tried it amid COVID-19 shutdowns. Yes, of course, the middle-aged woman's stress-battling trifecta: witchcraft, bread baking, and ketamine. She, of course, chose ketamine. My favorite part is how these options are presented as equals. So my mental images of a woman, she's feeling pretty stressed, right? She's got a bag of flour in one hand, a bottle of horse tranquilizer in the other. She looks over her shoulder at her altar to Satan and just thinks to herself, which one of these shall I use to combat my stress today? There's, of course, way more where that came from, but I think you get the point. Now, Vice is offering us something very interesting here. The cliche advice for someone who feels as if there's something wrong with their life, that the reality kind of sucks. Someone who's stressed, sad, lonely, and sad. Sad twice for emphasis. The cliche for this person is usually that they should do something to change and improve their life. Now, that's, of course, very difficult. The alternative that Vice is giving us is, how about instead of worrying about your adult responsibilities, how about you just do drugs? It's a valid point. Changing reality is very difficult, and you're lazy. But doing drugs is like way easier, and all the cool kids are doing it, so why aren't you doing it? Interesting thing happened in the last 10 years or so, where drug use went from something that edgy teenagers do in a shady back alley to something that hipster granola people do proudly in public. It's getting to the point where you're weird if you don't do drugs. Or at least that's the perception that's been created by the glorification of drug use created by journalists as well as the movie and music industries. What's very interesting is while popular themes in music and movies are getting more mature, they're also getting less mature. You could take any popular music, for example, any dime a dozen song where some guy's rapping about drugs, money, and girls, and all you gotta do is replace those themes with like pizza and video games, and then all of a sudden it's very clear that this person is mentally 14. There's no complexity to the presentation of their themes. There's no real commentary. They're basically just listing off the things that they like a rapper rapping about how he likes drugs, money, and girls, and he doesn't like police, is fundamentally exactly the same as a 14-year-old wearing a t-shirt that says, "I like video games, pizza, and sleeping, and I hate homework." It's literally the same thing. Now, with most movies these days, the movie is either strictly rated for adults because it's got like sex and violence in it, or it's in some weird middle ground between an adult movie and a kid's movie where it's got intense action sequences and special effects, but the story, the complexity of it, is just the same as a kid's movie. Star Wars, for example, you know who the bad guy is. What's his motivation, though? To take over the galaxy? But like, why? Why are they trying to do that? Why do they keep spending untold amounts of resources building Death Star equivalents just for them to get blown up over and over again? There's no explanation given. They're just evil and that's it. And what this is doing is taking a complex political dynamic and then simplifying it down to good versus evil. That's what movies like Star Wars do, which is of course conditioning people to apply that logic to real life politics, which is why it's so easy to convince people that so-and-so is Hitler. They're used to being told that someone is evil without explanation. What you're doing with these opinion articles is you're taking someone's complex issues and then you're giving them an oversimplified solution, which is just do drugs and don't worry about it. What they're doing, funny enough, by suggesting that people just do ketamine instead of dealing with their problems, is treating them like children. And what these drugs do is put people in a sedated state where they're very easily controlled and manipulated, and they'll basically believe whatever you tell them. To put it bluntly, like children. If you've ever spent any time around kids, you will know that you can just tell them stuff and they'll believe it. Because they're kids and they don't know any better. Which is why, of course, you need to be extremely careful with who you let around your kids. But now we have full-grown adults, sedated on drugs and alcohol, running childlike software, who have destroyed any critical thinking abilities that they may or may not have had with substance abuse and poor media consumption. What you're doing when you're taking drugs is you're trading in your mental capacities for a temporary alleviation of the pain that would be associated with avoiding responsibilities, which is something a child would do. Believing a narrative they've been told without even thinking about it. That's what children do. Taking horse tranquilizer without even thinking about the horses. Need I say it again? It's selfish and it's disgusting. Stop doing ketamine without thinking about how the horses feel. Stop doing all the drugs, 'cause you're a punk and you're dumb. Pay attention to the themes that you see on your screen, because they're manipulating your stupid child brain. Yeah, you're a child and you are all the same. Thank you for watching the video. @BadanLol on Instagram and Twitter. Like, comment, subscribe. Catch you later.